Welcome to the Navigating Baby Loss podcast. Today, I am so excited to be here with Patty Cuevas, and she is a mental health professional and a Christian podcaster who is helping moms deal with grief, and she's providing coaching and support for them. So, welcome, Patty. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm enjoying all of our pre-conversation preparation. So I'm
Yes.
really looking forward to today.
Oh, good. Well, this is the best part about doing podcasts is meeting all the amazing people that are working together in this space, helping women through this really hard time. So, I wonder if you would start out by sharing your own story of your loss.
Yes, my loss, our family's loss, was in 2015. At the beginning of 2015, I was a student at the time doing my traineeship and doing all good things grad school. We were newlyweds with my husband, who had just gotten married a year previously. So we were really looking forward to expanding our family. And every month, it was for about a year, close to a year, we kept trying and we just kept trying. And then we started saying, well, it might take a little bit longer than when we expected. So we said, okay, that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment for me because I was just that when you're a newlywed, the expectation and everyone else's expectation is, oh, this babies are going to come naturally and right away. You announce that you're engaged and people are already asking, when are you going to start having babies? So particularly in a Latino family, and I'm sure in other cultures as well, the emphasis on having babies is great.
Yes.
So we had gotten the news right before Christmas in 2014 that we were expecting. I was very excited. We made the announcement while we were opening presents. I was maybe, oh gosh, 4 weeks, just shy of 4 weeks. I knew right away. I think I suspected right away. My body felt different. And we were just very excited and over the moon. And coming into 9 weeks, I wasn't able to have an ultrasound. The doctors wanted me to wait till I was 8 weeks along. So it's that waiting period of, I just want that confirmation. And that week, it was my 9th week. I was going to have my ultrasound and really excited. I woke up kind of crampy that morning and just not feeling very well. I said, well, it might be, I've never been pregnant before, but it feels like a period. So speaking with my sisters, they said, nothing to worry about. It's natural. And I said, no, there's some spotting. They said, oh, it's natural. Don't worry about it. You're a first timer. I said, okay. And I just kept getting these lower back pains. And I went to my traineeship, my free work at the time as I was accruing hours, clinical hours for my program. And it just, something didn't feel right. I went about my day. I didn't end up going to class that night. I just said, I just feel off. I'm going to rest. And then probably around 10 o'clock that evening, it just, all the pains and I knew right away something wasn't right. So my husband and I went to the emergency room, still thinking it's probably nothing, but we're just taking every precaution possible. We waited for a ultrasound tech, and she even said, oh, how exciting. I'll take a picture for you. Once we do get the ultrasound, hand me your phone. And so I said, okay. So then they did the vaginal ultrasound, and it wasn't comfortable. And when I saw what she pulled out, I just said, oh no, that's not right. And her silence, she didn't offer the picture. She said, I'm going to call the doctor and don't worry. And she didn't know what to say, I think, because I think she realized, oh, I shouldn't have offered a picture without knowing exactly what's going on. So they brought me back out in a wheelchair. And my husband said, what happened? And I just started sobbing. And I said, something's wrong, because she offered the picture and then she didn't follow through on her request. We waited for the doctor, and just the doctor was very nonchalant and said, you were pregnant. It's no longer there. It looks like maybe at some point it stopped growing at 4 weeks. So approximately around the time I found out I was pregnant is when the miscarriage happened. And that's why I think this is so important to talk about these things, because for 5 more weeks after that, my life continued as if and planning and rearranging and thinking and being in grad school, of course, trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to have to ask my teachers for whenever I have to take time off for appointments or as we get closer, just your whole life changes. And it's the meaning that you place on your pregnancy. It doesn't matter how early or how late, it's the meaning and what that means to you and what the impact it has on your life. So I was very devastated. And he said, well, I said, what happens? And he said, well, you're going to pass some tissues like it's a heavy period, is what he said. So I'm thinking in my head, well, still trying to process everything that's going on, crying, but trying to process, okay, well, a heavy period, I have them all the time. So I know okay. So goes home, says, if you need to take some Tylenol. And that for 2 nights, it was the most excruciating pain, physically and emotionally. I didn't, even with having my own 2 kids now, my birth, neither one of those births were nearly as painful as what I went through. And I was devastated. I was really devastated. 2 weeks later, I was back in my program, in my traineeship. And mind you, I was in a psychology program. I spoke with my professors, and even one of them shared with me that she had experienced a loss and how sorry she was, and take it easy, but keep going to class, and how are your assignments? And so it was very hard. And I did not process the grief or the loss really fully until I became pregnant again with my first child, was when it really hit me that this was because then the question started coming up, then, is this your first pregnancy? And then I had to go back and explain. So the unprocessed grief, I think, that I experienced following this in this period, and being happy about being pregnant again, at the same time being petrified, and just going through every single stage through that loss. And in my program, there was this professor that was as well. So when we found out, when she shared with our class that she was pregnant, it really hit me, because that was supposed to be me as well. We would have been pregnant at the same time. And then when I spoke with her about it, she was very empathic. And I just said, by the way, when are you due? And she said, and I still remember, she said, in September. And I said, is it September 13th? And she said, how would you know that? She was in shock. How would you know my pregnancy due date? And I said, because that was mine.
Oh.
So having to go to class, and then when we came back from summer break, seeing her beautiful big belly and how ecstatic she was, it was really hard for me. And having her as my professor, as a daily reminder of what was not going to happen for me at that time, was just devastating.
So many things. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it's always a hard story, but I always think too, like our own children that are living, we love to talk about our baby story, because that's all we had from them. And I loved what you said, the meaning. It's the meaning that you have. It didn't matter that the baby stopped growing at 4 weeks. Wouldn't have mattered if it was in 6 months. It just, that whole experience is so meaningful, and you become a parent the minute you find out.
So this loss happened in January, and I lost my baby in January, and then comes Mother's Day. And what do I call myself? Do I celebrate it? Do I not celebrate it? So if I was clueless, imagine my husband was even more clueless.
Yes.
They go through their own grief process as well. It's not the same. And he was kind of tiptoeing around, and in all honesty, I was just saying, just celebrate me. Don't celebrate any other moms. Celebrate me, because I need this right now.
Yes.
And I don't want to go. And we went to church that Sunday, and, we celebrated our moms, but it was really, really difficult for me that during that period to really celebrate other moms and people that I also knew that got pregnant at the same time, and they were able to have, even a second during that time before my daughter actually came along. So I realized it's not this is my story, and there's stories of other women who waited much longer, or who have kept waiting, and or maybe have given up waiting, and to have a physical child of their own. So I want to be sensitive to them as well, because I don't want to minimize anybody's pain. That's just what happened to be my story, and what I believe the story that God had for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. I love that you asked for what you needed from your husband. How did
We
you know to do that? Because I think when we talk about unprocessed grief, what did that look like for you? And how did you get to that point where you were able to ask for help?
I think for me, well, first of all, it helps that you're going through a psychology program,
Yes.
intensive clinical demands, or where not only did we have to accrue our clinical hours working with clients, but we also had to do our own work as part of our grad program. And I'm very grateful for the school that I attended to, Azusa Pacific University in California. Excellent program. And I'm really grateful for their emphasis on you need to accrue your hours. So I took that opportunity, and that's part of a graduation requirement, is to do personal work. So I took the opportunity to do that, and I sought someone who sees students, and I was able to process some of that. I think I want to say later than I would have wanted to, but it was timely, because I think we just have our own process. And sometimes for me, the physical part of it was rough, in understanding what happened to my body, and how my body wasn't just going to bounce back, because there were hormones in my body, and my body still thinking it was, pregnant to some degree, and that those hormones were going to lessen over time, that it wasn't just going to say, okay, well, you're not pregnant anymore. And still having, a bit of the bloating, and a little bit of the engorging, and those physical symptoms of the pregnancy that lingered a little bit.
I think that is sometimes alarming to some people too, because not only do we have to process the emotional part of our loss, but there's a lot of physical. Even though your baby stopped growing fairly early, you still had all of those symptoms to deal with.
I think also too, when I'm, without going into the gory details of it, because it was really traumatic for me, the way
Sure.
that it happened, and that it happened. I was expecting a period, and I was expecting what the doctor said. Leave it up to a male doctor to tell me what my body was going to do.
Yes,
But
yes.
I just, I saw everything, and I was expecting to see a baby somewhere
Mhm.
along the line, and I chose to stay at home. And what do I do with this? What do I do? And because my baby had only grown to 4 weeks, I was expecting to see a 9-week fetus, but it didn't kind of connect with me at the time that I was going to pass a 4-week baby. And when that happened, I didn't even realize that was the baby. And that was the most heartbreaking part for me, because it took a lot of forgiving myself, because I said, what kind of mother am I that I treated my baby's body in this way? But I had no idea that was my baby's body.
I think there's such a lack of education, and you're an educated woman.
Yes.
You're an educated health professional, and it still wasn't clear to you what to expect. So yeah, we've definitely got some work to do on that for sure.
It wasn't until I checked back in the textbooks, because I said I never saw the baby. I never saw it. I saw the placenta. I saw things part by part. But then when I went back and checked what a 4-week baby looked like, and I do say baby because it was my baby,
Yeah.
and I said, oh my gosh, what did I do? And it floored me. And it really, that was the hardest piece. And I remember there was a point in my therapy, I said, what kind of mother doesn't take care of or realize that this is, and it just took me and that guilt that came with it. I was considered an older mom. And I remembered when the comments sometimes that you hear from people, even when you are newly pregnant. And I remember one comment specifically, it said, well, you're considered a geriatric pregnancy, right?
My gosh. Yeah.
So at the moment, I just said, oh, well, that's kind of rude. At the
Yeah.
when it was said to me. But when when I went through this, when I lost my baby, these words kind of echoed in my head. You're a geriatric. And it's just all this self-blame and guilt, thinking that I did something wrong to cause this.
And we do. And we cling to any word or action or anything we can to try to find reasoning or place
Yes,
blame
because
for this guilt.
we're trying to find the why. We're trying
Yeah.
to why. What was it that I did? I took care of myself. I consider myself fairly educated or resourceful. What was it? So anything that anyone may have said, and not maliciously or maybe carelessly or maybe not filtered and with bad intent, but it does echo and comes back. So in my work with ladies who have suffered a loss, I do emphasize a lot on the guilt part of it, because I think sometimes that's what limits us from moving forward or wanting to move forward, because we subconsciously think that we have to somehow punish ourselves for whatever it is that we think we didn't do or wasn't good enough.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, that leads me right into blaming. And was your faith tested during this time? How did your faith come into play?
My faith, first of all, I'm a woman of faith, and
Mhm.
everything that I do since I accepted Christ into my life is connected to my faith. During this time, I questioned God. I went through it I was angry at God. I said, well, if you didn't want me to have a baby at this time, then why give it to me? Like, that's just selfish. Why would you give me something and take it away? And you call yourself a father, and you call yourself loving, and all of these thoughts that just go through our mind. And when we're trying to make sense of our grief, and when we're speaking from a point of hurt and disappointment. So I questioned God a lot, and I was mad at him, and I used to pray and tell him, God, I love you, but I am so mad at you. I am so mad at you. And God's response over, and I said, I'm so mad at you because I've done everything right, quote unquote. I've been a good wife, I've been a good student, I've been a good daughter, I've been a good student, I've been a good clinician, whatever, I've been a good whatever, fill in the blank. And I said, and this is how you love me, this is how you show your love for me. And I had these very heart-to-heart conversations with God many times, many times. But as I worked through my grief, I thought, well, God lost a son too. And he lost a son for all of us. And he lost a son in a sense. He didn't lose him because Jesus came back. But he suffered a loss and the giving up of his only son.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just praying, well, okay, maybe you know a little bit about loss. So here in my humanity, in my flesh, thinking, okay, maybe you do know a little bit, because sometimes we talk to God like I do. I talk to God real, very real, like he's my father, daddy. And I say, okay, maybe you do know a little bit. And then later on, I come back and say, I'm sorry, Lord, I was mad at you, but I'm not anymore. Or help me to get over my anger. I know it's not your fault, but just help me understand. And one of the things that I asked him in my conversations with him, I would say, you didn't even give me a chance to hold my baby. You didn't even give me a chance to see. And I believed in my heart of hearts that it was a girl. I said, you didn't even give me a chance to see her face. Like, how dare you, to hear her heartbeat. And then I had a dream many months later where I was in a rocking chair nursing a baby girl. And and I was sitting by a window, and sun was just hitting me and hitting her face. And I was just rocking her, and she lit up the brightest smile, and I woke up.
Oh, wow.
So that was a turning point, I think, in my healing journey, where I said, okay, Lord, he gives us our heart's desires. He gave me, it wasn't in the form that I imagined it would happen, but it was so meaningful to me. And I thought, okay, I know she's good because I held her.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you. I so appreciate your real raw thoughts about it, because I felt the same things. And and then you talk about guilt. It's You also feel guilty for thinking those things when you're a woman of faith. And so yes, it does come back around, and those gifts are there they do show up from him later on. And
And there's just guilt all around. You feel guilty
yeah,
that you may have done something wrong. You feel guilty for not trusting God, quote unquote,
yeah,
in your suffering. And also in your process, you get, and I was listening to your first episode and I said, oh my gosh, this so resonates with me when, when people try to say the right thing and try to say things and use scripture. And I was just like, I'm not trying to hear that right now. I appreciate it, but I'm not trying to hear it right now. I'm not feeling,
no,
I'm not trying to hear it. And they said, well, what should we do? Nothing. Just if you don't know what to say, just tell me I don't know what to say, but I'm here.
yes,
But
yes, I'm listening. I'm here. Yeah, 100%. And I think the same too about your faith. It is okay to kind of be angry and mad and express that. And then, because at the same time, that also was the thing I wanted to cling the most to,
Mhm. It's
was that.
probably the one thing that kept me grounded or being present was being angry,
Yes.
because that was the only reaction that really you got from me around that time, because I'm just angry. Just don't talk to me. Don't, I turned off my social media for a minute because of what I had been researching, the email list that I had. I had to shut all that off
Yeah.
for a little bit, and I do. And I encourage women to do whatever they feel that they need to do that's safe for them.
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
what's safe for me. I didn't want to hear, oh, your baby's now the size of a watermelon, or cantaloupe and all that, good stuff, which I did get to enjoy later. But at the time, I just
Mhm.
had to shut it off and delete stuff and just go off grid for a little bit. And I think if I could have gone back knowing what I know now, I think I would have taken a longer break from school, maybe at least a semester, not 2 weeks, whatever that looked like, but not 2 weeks. I
Yeah.
wish I would have taken more of a pause, because I think it would have helped heal or deal with some of the things that I was still feeling with, and not have that unprocessed grief later on when I was pregnant again, and when, things
Mhm.
got a little bit more emotional.
But true to society's expectations, you just jumped right back in and tried to pretend that everything was fine,
Yes,
because that's
shake it
what we
off,
do.
walk it off, shake it
Yeah.
off. I had one too, or I had three or four.
Yes, I know. Yeah, it happens to so many women. It's just so common. But when it's you, it doesn't feel that way. So what advice would you give someone who is wrestling with their faith during this time?
I think I would really encourage people, first of all, to do their own work, seek a therapist, seek someone, a specialist, preferably, or a coach like yourself, who specializes with women in these areas of grief, as it pertains to losing a baby
Mhm.
or losing a child. That would be my first. As far as the faith is do what gives you peace.
Mm.
If we keep in mind just doing what gives us peace, and whatever it is that may look like, whether that's screaming at God for 5 minutes, or out of your prayer time, hey, I'm sure he sees worse.
Yeah.
He sees worse and hears worse. I think, it's kind of, and I would imagine now that I have my two children, when they're upset because they didn't get something that they were really looking forward to, my heart breaks for them. And I
Yeah.
have that comfort. I don't get mad at them if they're crying, or if they say, mommy, you said, and I have to say,
Mhm.
well, things change because they had to change. And I know you don't understand that right now, but you will later. I know it hurts right now, and that's okay. And I think, and I see that, and that's the way I picture, my heavenly father is really comforting me in that same way. So I think for women is really do whether that is journaling, whether that is working with an organization that works with young mothers, whether that, or to channel that grief in whatever way that it gives you peace.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's great
Whether
advice.
your art, whether
Yeah.
it's helping other women, helping children, or just not doing anything. That's
Yep.
okay. That is
That's
totally okay.
that's really okay too. Yes.
We don't expect in our everyday lives, we don't expect someone who has lost a father or a mother or a sibling. We don't expect them to just walk it off in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so why do we expect that from moms who have lost their babies.
Yeah, we do though. Yeah. So, what is the danger of keeping it silent, pushing it under the rug? You talk a lot about unprocessed grief, and the toll that it takes from a mental health professional view. What is the danger of keeping that to yourself?
Well, the danger of that is especially if you have some kind of pre-existing struggle with mental health, if you come from a family of trauma, if you experience depression, suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, if anxiety, if you have these kind of pre-existing conditions, it's going to exacerbate all of these emotions, and it may bring back other grieving in your life in the past. So it you can swirl. It's really easy to swirl. In my case, I've struggled with anxiety all my life. And when I lost my baby, it was just, I was anxious about everything. And the way that, and we all express our anxiety in different ways. And with me, it was, I was just move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing. So you just kind of break down. And when it could be the smallest thing, it could be a date, like your professor, and there is something that would not trigger you to kind of spiral into this deep depressions or anxiety episodes. Those little things will spiral you if you don't take care of that in a careful way. I would say, I can't say timely because everybody's timing is different.
Yeah.
But if we are not, it will affect our relationships. It will steal our joy, whatever it is, whatever piece or whatever fragment of joy we still have in our lives, it will contaminate that, or not even contaminate, maybe that's not the right word, but it will take over. It will take over the different areas in our lives. And if we can't do the things that we normally would do, our daily functions, if we can't go to work, if we can't have a good relationship with our family members or with our spouses, if we struggle professionally or even spiritually, we know that there's this part of unprocessed grief that is really stopping you from living a fulfilled life, because it does happen. And I don't want to sound very too positive, very, very positive or unrealistically positive, or with a toxic positivity, but you do move forward if you choose to, in the time that works best for you, and in a way that is so beautiful. Before my loss, I found it very hard connecting with people who had experienced loss, because I had never suffered a major loss myself. After my baby loss, I was just so much more empathic. I do believe that I was a much better clinician for it, because of I was able to connect with people's grief at some level. I understood it, maybe not quite exactly the same, but I understood the process a little bit clearer and better, and I was more empathic rather than just say, well, I don't know what to say. I remember being a green, not young, green graduate student, and thinking, I don't know how to connect with this mom that has lost her son in a car accident. I have never experienced anything like it. And I had to kind of, gently move her to a different clinician, because I just didn't know how. And after I lost my baby, I just understood it fuller and deeper. And I think I was a much better human being for it, even though I don't want to say it took that, but I like to think that my baby's loss because had meaning to it. It gave my life full of meaning. She will stay with me all of my life. And I can relate with people who are suffering because of the suffering that I experienced. And I think my baby's worth it, to use that as that's my fuel and my catapult.
Yes. I agree. I think none of us would ever choose this.
Yes.
Certainly. None of us would ever choose this path. But the growth that does come on the other side of it is really what helps us to live a better, fuller life, and one that is more meaningful and helpful to others, I think. I do believe that. but it takes a while to get there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
For
And it
sure.
looks differently for everyone. If someone
Yes.
might pick up and say, well, I want to be a professional backpacker now. Hey, that's okay. If that's the way you
Yeah.
feel called, and if you feel that's the way your journey is headed, then more
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. I think you do get some clarity and, on the other side. How did you deal with your jealousy, or did you have jealousy for, this professor that was every day in your face with their excitement and their, chatter about their pregnancy? How did you deal with that?
She was very, because I had shared it with her, the times
Hmm.
that we did share the classroom space together, she was mindful.
Yeah.
And she was my professor. She wasn't my pregnant professor.
Hmm.
It was harder to hear comments from other students when they would ask her questions about her pregnancy because they didn't know about my story. So she would, answer their questions politely, but she was very mindful. So it was never a jealousy. There was that reminder. I just remember seeing her belly and just thinking, gosh, that's the most beautiful belly I've ever seen, because I'm thinking that would have been mine. That would have been my
Yes.
belly. And mine
Yeah.
would have been the most beautiful I've ever seen. But I think it wasn't the physical reminder. I think the date reminder. That's just what got me when we heard the news and they made the announcement in our cohort. Oh, we keep Professor so and so in your prayers. She just had her baby, and everybody's like, yay. And it was a dagger to my heart, because I'm thinking that was my due date.
Yeah.
They would have made the announcement about me. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I think it was more that, but she was very gracious. She was very empathic. What was, I think, harder for me was probably maybe other people who didn't know, and they would say, oh, imagine how, and we should do this for her. We should have a shower for her. And that's another thing. I steered away from baby showers, birthday parties, all of that for a good year
Okay.
for
And
me.
it's okay, right? And
It
it
was
was okay.
it
Yeah.
was totally okay. So it was okay for me. So other people maybe that expected me to be
I
president.
was going to say, maybe in a Latino family also that may not have been so popular,
But
but
remember, that was your babysitter when you were in the first grade.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe it wasn't okay for other people, but for me, that's at least. And I think this is where our spouses come in. They just don't get enough credit,
Mhm.
because they go through their own grief process, like I said. And I just have such an amazing husband that was just as much looking forward to having our first baby together
Yes.
as you could possibly be. And I said, babe, I'm not digging it right now. And he said, no, better for me. I don't, I want to stay home too.
Oh, good.
So it's very important to kind of, if you have that spouse in your life that is supportive, or a mom, or anybody, that special person that is supportive with you, and said no, that can really affirm your feelings and validate what you're feeling. But the fact that, and I remember in one of the conversations that me and my husband had, where I was just so deep in my grief, and he said, I lost the baby too.
Oh,
And it just,
yeah.
it opened my eyes to just kind of realize that that's my husband is my ride or die, and in everything. So I'm just so grateful that he understood that, and he honored that, and he didn't pressure me, and he was very gentle with
Good.
with the grief.
Mm, that's amazing. You're so lucky.
Mhm.
And it's hard for them to understand it because they do have a different experience of it. We have definitely the physical connection, but they lose the the future dreams of it too. So,
Yes.
well, I love the work that you're doing helping women through this. And where can everybody find your podcast, find your any information that you have that's so helpful?
Yes, the newest I am working on currently is on Facebook, is the Listen Bea podcast community group, where I hope listeners can come in, just we can have more of an interactive conversation surrounding grief and loss, feeling left behind in life, and starting over. So look forward to seeing that up soon. Listeners can also listen to the Listen Bea podcast, which I'm really excited about. started, so I'm still in diapers.
Oh, good.
The podcast
Good.
so far, it's something, it's really a passion project, love project, and
Mm.
I really hope that if someone wants to keep listening about loss in general, grief in general, pushing forward and starting over and finding that space where you kind of take reins of your life again, you can listen to the Listen Bea podcast. And I'm also on Instagram at Coach Patty Cuevas. So you can follow me and DM me if you need more information. I'm not only a mental health advocate, as a mental health advocate and professional, I really have an emphasis on suicide prevention. The suicide prevention number 988. Whenever you feel in that space where you really can't see tomorrow or even the next moment in your life, that's a really good number to kind of plug into and reach out to. It was pivotal for me, not earlier in my life. That's why I emphasize that unprocessed grief is really important to process, because it can trigger and swirl you back into that vortex of the place where you lose all hope.
That's so important. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that is an important factor that kind of goes untouched sometimes. And when you're wrestling with these feelings of grief and postpartum depression and hormonal shifting and all of it at once, it can be a dangerous time for some people. So thank you for that. That's really important to know.
And I'm glad that you bring that up of postpartum depression, because you can give birth even though you don't take a baby home and still have postpartum depression.
Absolutely.
Some people think that you need to bring a baby home.
Yeah.
To validate, to be able to say, well, you had a baby, so you're allowed to be, to have postpartum depression. Not necessarily.
No.
Exactly what it is. It's post.
Yeah. I mean, right. And it's hard to sort out what is grief and what is postpartum depression. And it's just a really important thing to keep an eye on for yourself or someone you love.
And postpartum anxiety. I think
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get as much of attention sometimes as PPD, even though it comes together.
Yeah.
But postpartum anxiety can be just as triggered like anything else.
Well, good. Well, that sounds like another episode for you and I think that we could probably get into all kinds of things about that.
I look forward to it.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you so much, Patty. I so appreciate all of your expertise and your time today. And I look forward to connecting with you more.
Oh, thank you. I look forward. Thank you for this space. It's an honor to be in this space, and my heart really resonates with yours. I love what you do. I love why you do it. And I understand the part of a baby girl or baby girls. And it really resonated with me, and it really touched my heart deeply. And I respect what you do that much even more.